That's what I want to do.
What?
That's what I want to do. You know, we're here with Dan going through on this bit of acreage here with Terry's place, and you just think, you know, when you've got the right people, you've got the right setup, he's got the right knowledge, the right attitude, you come to this place and you think, this is what I want to do.
This is
This
totally.
is what I want to do. And that's that feeling, and that just goes beyond all jobs or whatever you want to do.
So this row here is direct seeded, so there's a particular little machine that you can put the seeds in and push it along and it'll seed the area. This bed here is, that's pak choi. This bed here was only transplanted last week and it's got parsley in it. And this drip irrigation system, they just turn that on so that they know exactly where to plant the parsley in. So there's 3 rows there. And then you jump over here, so this would have been last month's planting of the pak choi. So you can see it's grown up, well grown, and it's probably going to be ready to harvest soon. And then here they've got a row of, which is a bit unusual, this is a row of eggplant, and what Terry was doing was putting basil down the middle as a companion plant, and we can see that over here, we can see that effect where he's done that.
Beautiful.
So if I was doing this, I would have put the basil in at the same time, and I would direct seed the basil rather than transplant it because it's more time efficient.
Okay. And basil can handle that, it's the sort of thing.
Yeah, that's right. Whereas eggplant, you can't effectively direct seed them. It's best to grow them in the nursery and transplant them. Then you can see the next bed here, if you stand over this row. So that would have been, looks like they're similar age, but you can sort of see a difference here where one row's bigger than the other. So it's sort of like they might have just done one row here a month ago, then maybe 2 weeks after that they put another row in, and then on the third one they put another row in with the seeding machine. So that might be an experimental bed, that one, to see what the best timing and spacing is for the plants. This bed here, these lettuce are fairly young, they'll be all right, but over here I'll show you some lettuce that
that way?
Yeah, that overgrew and they didn't get watered in time and they went bitter. So yeah, they're going to just be ploughed back in, which is unfortunate.
Oh, is it a blister?
Yeah, I just stepped on a hot
On a coal, yeah.
on the fire the other day.
Wow.
Nursing the blister, yeah.
How do you get that blister still full of water? That it's... Oh, eggplants.
Yeah, that's a disease. These ones have vermicillium root rot.
Yeah.
And
poor eggplants.
You can see it's affected just this section up here, but the rest of them are okay. None of the other plants have got them.
Is it dangerous for the...
Yes, it will kill the plant. So you can see this one, for whatever reason, is resistant.
Yeah.
So it's not been affected, although all the others have been.
But is it dangerous as well for having these now and all having all the...
Potentially, yes. So you would not want to pick the soil up from here that's got the disease in it and then put the soil over there because you'll spread it.
Yep.
So that's where, for example, even just boots, if I was to stand on there, get the mud in here and then stand over there, I could be spreading it. So yeah, you really do need to know your diseases, particularly in the tropics, because you get a lot more things up here than pests and diseases than you do in other areas.
Yep.
So this pak choi is this week was the first harvest, so they're all ready to go. These were overplanted, so the machine put too much seed out all at once, and now they're competing for nutrients and light. So he's really working hard. He can't just go along and take them. He's got to go out and take the biggest ones out now. So give space for the other ones to grow. Yep. So hopefully that problem doesn't occur with the other pak choys that are growing down there.
How much could you expect to get out of a row like this? Is it roughly, or a row over there of bok choy?
He could be harvesting 200 bunches a week out of here, no problem.
Wow.
More. Right, so and that will go for a month.
Wow.
So you're getting $2 a bunch, so that's $400 you can make a week just out of
that
That's
row.
beautiful.
Just out of that row.
It's amazing.
For a month.
That amount of land.
More.
It's just ridiculous.
Yeah. So here we've got the lettuce.
How much you can achieve. Sorry, you go.
This was the bok choy that was being harvested. It got attacked by aphids and a few other problems. So he did a control thing, and most of the aphids died, but they died and left. They died on the leaf. So although they weren't there, they weren't doing any damage. you couldn't sell them because they had old dead aphids underneath them. So he left them, and then he realised a week later, this week, that the insides of them grew bigger, and he's able to just take the outside aphid affected leaves off, and then he can still sell them. Right, so
Cool.
unfortunately, unlike this one, if you taste that, it's gone bitter, so you can't sell that. It's not an edible yet anymore.
That's too
So
old.
that whole row is, those 2 rows,
Oh yeah, it's really
gone. No good.
bitter.
Yeah.
Wow.
So if you come over to the next row, which is what he's done, he's put the basil in the middle of this, and I'll show you, here's a basil plant just here. And then what he discovered is that there was a lot more money. Basil is in demand in the marketplace, and he can make money out of selling the basil.
Oh.
So I talked to him about what about adjusting his planting of eggplants and putting a single row of eggplant down the middle and 2 rows of basil on the outside, so it's easier to harvest the basil, and they'll provide additional protection because basil works by its scent to stop other pests. So if it's on both sides, it's going to be more effective. But I mean, and he was thinking commercially, he didn't realise that there'd be a demand for the basil, but there is, and it's a very easy plant to grow. And the only problem that it gets is little grasshoppers chewing holes in the leaves. So it's an easy plant to grow and very profitable.
Flower is beautiful. The
Yeah,
eggplant is really nice too.
yeah. Look how healthy they are.
Yeah,
So healthy.
they look really beautiful.
Basil's such a good.
This is a row of
Personally,
coriander.
oh, it's
So
coriander.
there's not a lot
Oh,
left because they're down to the last harvest.
Yep.
But yeah, just when they're harvesting, if we can find a slightly big one, we can demonstrate. This one's bolting, so it's running to seed. But the idea is you just take the whole plant out like that. And usually they're bigger than that. And then you bunch, you get 3 or 4 or whatever you need, depending on the size of the ones that are being picked. And then you just bunch them together.
Cool.
Now, because these might have the root disease in them, because it's got the vermicillium root rot and there's nematodes and other things here, I'll give this to you, but I wouldn't recommend that you take the roots because you don't want to spread the disease. So there
That's
you go.
awesome.
Can
Thank
probably get you
you.
a few more bits of that. too.
That's delicious. Oh, that's good.
Nice. Thank you so much.
That was lovely. Thanks so much.
So in the next row, if we come round, you can see they put the silver beet in. And this had bok choy in it as well, and the bok choy's already been harvested and gone, so it's now just the silver beet. And the silver beet have a disease, have a pest attacking them,
Yeah.
and it causes this discoloration of the leaf, which makes the leaf unsellable. But it's totally
never
edible.
seen
There
it
is
before.
absolutely nothing wrong with the plant, and that's a mite that's causing that discoloration there.
I've never seen this plant before.
That's interesting.
The silver beet. It's often called spinach. There's a lot of confusion about what it is.
Mm.
Down there you can see some of the rejected eggplant fruits that
yep.
didn't even make it up to the shed for sorting. So yeah, there's a lot of fruit just lying on the ground, rotting. If we moved over to the next couple of rows, we've got, of course that's more eggplant, and this one is rocket.
Yeah, that's so beautiful.
There's a bit of weed control that needs to happen. This is a common blue top's a common
Yeah.
weed for bananas. Banana farmers get it a lot. So yeah, unfortunately these look like they've been attacked by a mite or something as well, so that's become unsaleable. But the rocket is also a very profitable and easy to grow crop generally, but you just got to stay on top of things like mites. So you can see he's done rocket one row, silver beet in the middle, and then rocket on the outer edge again. And then you row to the next row, and that's all been harvested, so that's about empty, but you can see what used to be in there is some bok choy. And we're going to have a bit, once again, eggplant, so that's the thing he's focused on. It's eggplant, basil. And then this row had bok choy in it, and look at the size of this. So he's going
Whoa.
to keep this one, the seed from this.
Yep.
It's not bolting and going running flowers, or it's just starting to bolt now, but he wants to keep the seed of this and use it to grow further ones later, so we've just left that one alone. And it's interesting that it happens to be the first one in the row. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's not all the way down there somewhere.
What is the reason why you have so much space between the eggplants? Is there a specific reason, or is it just practical? Or
It was probably because it was just the gardeners evolved and developed, so he would have like put the eggplant and the bok choy in at the same time, but the eggplant's going to live for a lot longer than a bok choy is.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just say it's for practical purposes to have that progressive thing, so that then, you know, he can finish up when that area is finished being planted. He can then come back over here and turn that soil in and then get ready to plant the next area. Although he's already started that. So if we go over here, there's the parsley harvest. It's like very good money, very easy to grow. He's got two varieties, so he's got the triple curl here, and then he's got the flat leaf variety just over there. It hasn't even been mulched, but look, it's just done so well as far as like the weeds are being held at bay. And this is one of the market garden tools for weeding. It's called a wheel hoe.
Oh wow!
And it works by like this. So you can adjust the blade. You can adjust this blade if needs be, and you can go along and you're just cutting the weed off underneath the
That's beautiful.
underneath the ground like
roots.
that.
Wow.
And there goes the weeds. So all of these would have been when they were younger. It's so much harder because the leaves are in the way. You can't do that because you'll run over the leaf and it won't be saleable. But when they were young, he would have come in. This would have been very, very close. You could turn the blade right around too, so the blade goes out the other way. So it can be here, and the blade comes out that end there and goes in underneath the leaves. Don't see many of these except in
No,
market garden
it looks really
operations.
old.
Yeah, I don't know how old, but
Like an old design, perhaps.
oh yeah, that's
Yeah,
an ancient tool. That's a very, you know, that would have been used in farming practices in Europe for
Years
you know,
ago.
Yeah,
Yeah.
hundreds of years ago.
Any use for something like blue top? Is there any other uses for these
Well,
sort of weeds
if-
that people
if-
have come across?
The blue top's mining minerals in the soil,
Yeah.
accumulating the minerals into the plant. So if it makes an excellent compost material, as long as you get it before it goes to flower.
Okay.
So because otherwise,
Seeds.
yeah, that's right. So depending on how good you are at heat composting, sometimes you'll kill the seeds. And some plants like Farmer's Friends or Cobbler's Peg, they survive a heat composting process. So yeah, if you get them at the right time before they go to seed, then you're recycling the nutrients from this soil back into your compost, and then the compost comes back out onto the soil again later. So yeah, every weed is a dynamic accumulator of minerals. So you're going to, if you can keep, all you got to do is get to it before it goes to
Flowering.
seed. And so yeah, if you just monitor it and look at and watch them, and then as soon as they, even like that, they would not have viable seed in them, right? They haven't formed and developed enough, so that would be safe to put in your compost.
Okay.
There are plants, some weeds, that don't propagate by seed. It's just the root, they just can plant it in the ground or just let it sit on the surface and it'll grow from that.
Okay.
So they're weeds you've got to be very careful about composting, and you know, you might not want to compost those. Or you kill them, you put them under black plastic first and then fully kill them and then put them in the compost.
Okay. And composting just in piles, compost teas, whatever's appropriate for your own situation, I suppose.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of piles.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I like to compost.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah. And we just, so you can see on here there's passion fruit growing along the
Yay,
vines.
nice.
So passion fruit is a very, very easy crop. Our vines grow really well in the tropics. So passion fruit is a crop that he wants to focus on and eventually get to a point where this is mainly a passion fruit farm. So all of this is like the stepping stone. The money that you make from here helps build the next step to make it viable to turn this into a big passion fruit
How long
farm.
has this been going for? How long is Terry?
Oh, I don't know. I think only a couple of years.
Yeah.
I think I was here 2 years ago and none of this infrastructure was here. He wasn't growing crops here because he was managing the banana farm next door.
Oh yeah.
So over here we've got, on the other side of the trellis here, we've got cucumbers growing. So you can get an idea of how that'll work. So you would have seen over the other area, they've just, this one's done differently again, how they've gotten it up there, but they'll be putting on a support like this and then they'll be running strings along so that the cucumbers have got something to grow up. So they did get a disease, they got nematodes unfortunately, so some of there's patches where there's hardly any vine there because it's been eaten off.
Many disease around, eh?
Yeah, well, the tropics is an area where you're going to get that. So down here you can see they've thrown some fertiliser out, a handful of fertiliser, and they haven't had the time or they haven't had the mulch to mulch over it. So they're losing some of the nitrogen to the atmosphere there. But I love this. This is direct seeded rocket. So they've just walked along with the seeding machine and put in rows of it. You can see how it all goes.
Yep.
It's not a fully straight row.
It's not straight, yeah.
So yeah, you can have rows that are, not just straight rows. But for management purposes, for using weed hose, for using wheel hose, and for using just weed hose, it's so much easier if things are in a row to control the weeds.
A couple of questions. One, what sort of gardens have you seen that have been production gardens that have not used straight line? Have you ever seen any other different system that people have, vertical systems or?
Not on a commercial scale, because
it's just you can't.
It becomes a management cost.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you've got a straight row, you're going to weed that row 4 times faster with the tools that you've got than if you've got rows that are, well, not rows at all. Things planted here, there, and everywhere, or whatever. There's going to be you're going to spend so much more time and energy maintaining them. Sure. This is where, if you want to have mixing how you plant the rows up, that becomes then the key.
Okay.
All right. So what companions, which plants can you mix together and grow together so that they can? That's where you get your diversity. That's where you get the creation of more edge. The edge is the most productive zone, which is a permaculture concept. So to have the tallest growing plant in the middle and then the shorter ones on each side of it, a very simple concept. Yeah. And that's what I've just actually introduced Terry to that idea, so that he's going to start doing that a bit more.
Is there a literature or a book or something out there, or a resource out there that like a book that someone's written perhaps that is directly about all companion planting in that manner?
Most
like
of
a
those
go-to
books
Bible or something.
Most of those books aren't written for commercial scale operations, so they're applicable on a small scale.
Okay.
But yeah, you can, if you get that core knowledge, that core information, of course you can then adapt it. That's right, and that's what Terry's doing here. He's adapting that core information, and always experimenting with new ways of doing things.
Just thought I'd ask, because there's always great books that are written or great resources.
Yeah.
And you'll definitely have yours there, that's for sure. But I just was wondering about if there was, something.
Yeah, look, there is some really good books.
Wow, this is spectacular.
But there is quite a few really good books out there.
Too many to mention.
Yeah.
How long do you have before the nitrogen completely leaves this fertiliser? How long do you really have?
Well, if it rains, it'll wash it in. So some of it will go into the soil and fix in the soil. Okay. Right? And it needs carbon source, like old weeds, roots that are breaking down and things will absorb the nitrogen, and then it'll release it slowly for the plants.
Okay, so that's the key, organic matter in the soil.
Yes.
Stores the nitrogen, releases it.
Slowly, yeah.
Have you seen any results with biochar? Is biochar something I've
not personally seen it, but I've heard of really good results with it. And the biochar is acting as a sponge, basically, to hold the nutrients and water in place, and then it's accessible slowly to the plants.
Okay, wonderful.
Yeah. That's my next area of experimentation.
Same. I talked to Terry. I wanted to set up a little trial down here with biochar.
Yeah.